They thought the humans would run, but they were wrong. The story begins aboard the Coalition's flagship in a sleek, dimly lit command chamber. Alien commanders, representing various species, are gathered around a large, crystal-like table. A screen displays human fleet movements, casting a cold, blue light across the room. The atmosphere is thick with tension as the alien leaders react to the unsettling news. General Corvo, tall and authoritative, with scales a deep shade of blue, stands at the head of the table. His face is set in a tense expression as he stares at the screen. His violet eyes are sharp and focused, but there's a flicker of disbelief in his gaze. He speaks in a low, deliberate tone that carries an edge of frustration. General Corvo, it's official. The humans have entered the war. The announcement stirs a murmur through the chamber. Shocked glances are exchanged among the commanders. Admiral KSAR, a slender being with silver skin that shimmers under the light, leans forward with wide eyes. Admiral KSAR, almost whispering, humans? But they're isolated. They've always kept to themselves, never joining alliances or councils. What changed? Corvo taps a control on the panel, bringing up images of human ships crossing into a contested star system. The ships appear rugged and battle-worn, carrying signs of long, hard-fought journeys. General Corvo grimly. They're taking direct action, no negotiations, no offers of peace. They just entered one of our outposts and launched a full-scale assault. This is not a bluff. Commander TYR, a thin, wiry alien with skin that looks like liquid metal, steps forward with a dismissive wave. Commander TYR, scoffing. So, they finally decided to fight. They must think they're clever, pulling off one last act of defiance before they fade. I've seen their ships. They're outdated, crude. They wouldn't stand a chance against our fleet. Corvo turns sharply to face TYR, his expression hardening. General Corvo, underestimating them would be a mistake. Tyr pauses. These humans, they're not like us. They don't care for glory or alliances. They don't even seem to care about victory. They fight because they have to. For them, there's no retreat, no other choice. A heavy silence settles over the room. Admiral KSAR frowns, looking around at her fellow commanders. Admiral KSAR, puzzled, almost incredulous. You're saying they're driven purely by survival? No politics, no ambition? They threw themselves into this war just to survive? Corvo lets out a slow breath, his gaze never leaving the screen as the human fleet formation advances. General Corvo possibly hesitates. Or maybe there's something they see that we don't. Corvo taps the panel again, and the display zooms in on one of the human ships. The vessel is rugged, showing scars from previous battles, but it moves with a steady, methodical precision. The alien commanders observe the ship in silence, taking in the human fleet's unyielding progress. Commander TYR, with a sneer, look at them. Clumsy, unrefined. They rely on brute force, nothing more. They're like a cornered animal, making a desperate move. Corvo turns to face TYR, his gaze intense. General Corvo perhaps, Tyr. But even a cornered creature is dangerous. If we let ourselves be complacent, it could be our undoing. TYR shifts uncomfortably under Corvo's scrutiny, looking away. The screen flickers with tactical data from Zechariah 3, showing human ships positioning themselves with remarkable accuracy. Admiral KSAR, in a softer tone, filled with unease. There was no communication, no explanation. They just appeared and attacked. It's cold, precise. Corvo nods slowly, an almost admiring look crossing his face. General Corvo, that's exactly what concerns me. They're not rushing in recklessly or making any grand statements. They're calm, collected, and methodical. I suspect they're here to show us just what they're capable of when they have no choice. The commanders shift uneasily, some glancing at each other as the weight of Corvo's words sinks in. Commander TYR, trying to maintain his bravado, but they're alone. No allies, no support. They can't expect to win against the coalition's combined forces. Corvo's voice drops lower, but it cuts through the room with chilling clarity. General Corvo, they don't expect to win, Tyr. They simply expect to fight. And sometimes, the most dangerous foe is one that has nothing to lose. Tyr is silent, visibly unsettled. Corvo's eyes flicker back to the screen, watching the human ships as they continue their calculated approach. Admiral KSAR, whispering more to herself. Could we have been wrong about them all this time? Corvo doesn't respond, but his intense gaze on the screen speaks volumes. He seems both troubled and fascinated, as if studying something alien and unknowable. The screen shifts to a display of the Coalition fleet mobilizing in response, setting up defenses around their outpost at Zechariah 3. Corvo takes a deep breath, his expression grim. General Corvo, almost to himself, with a hint of respect. We thought the humans would run, but they didn't. And now, they're here to teach us why. The room is silent. Each commander, despite their disbelief, watches the screen with a growing sense of unease, realizing that this enemy is not one to be dismissed lightly. The commanders stand around the central display, their faces lit by the holographic projection of the human fleet. Each ship is clearly marked, showing a formation that appears tight, but comparatively unsophisticated. Commander Morak, tall and heavily armored, sneers as he studies the fleet. Commander Morak, voice laced with contempt. So, these are the famous humans who've decided to play soldier. Look at them, primitive engines, clunky hulls, barely any advanced shielding. Do they really believe they're fit to stand against us? Several commanders chuckle, amused by Morak's words. Admiral KSAR raises an eyebrow, but says nothing, her gaze fixed on the human ships with an expression that suggests a hint of curiosity. Commander Tyr, smirking, they may have spirit, but that's hardly enough. These ships look like relics from a forgotten era. It's hard to take them seriously when they're so basic. General Corvo, standing slightly apart, watches silently, his face impassive. His eyes, however, reveal a slight tension as he observes the human fleet's movements. Commander Morak, with a dismissive wave of his hand, indeed, they'll be swept aside in moments. I imagine they'll retreat as soon as they taste real combat. He gestures to the Coalition fleet, represented by sleek, silver-blue ships arranged in a flawless defensive formation around the Coalition's outpost. Commander Morak, chuckling, they have no idea what they're up against. The Coalition is unmatched even by the strongest of our enemies. This little stunt of theirs is nothing but a passing annoyance. Admiral KSAR turns her gaze from the human fleet to Morak, her expression calm but her voice edged with caution. Admiral KSAR perhaps, but their arrival here suggests a certain determination. They could have avoided us entirely. Yet here they are, challenging one of our outposts head-on. Commander Morak, rolling his eyes. It's sheer desperation. What choice do they have? They're an isolated species, clinging to survival on the edge of civilized space. They've likely convinced themselves they have nothing to lose. But that's not the same as strength. The room falls quiet as the display shifts, showing the human fleet advancing toward the Coalition's defense line. Their formation may lack the elegance of the Coalition's, but there's a disciplined rhythm in their approach. Commander Tyr, smirking. Discipline alone won't save them. Our weaponry is centuries ahead. They'll crumble at the first volley. Corvo, still observing quietly, finally speaks, his tone steady, but with an undertone of caution. General Corvo, they may lack our technology, but don't forget that survival can be a powerful motivator. Sometimes, those with nothing to lose are willing to go further than those with everything to protect. The other commanders exchange uneasy glances, their smirks fading slightly. Morak, however, scoffs, unshaken in his disdain. Commander Morak grinning, please, General, you're giving them too much credit. They're here because they're out of options, not because they're a real threat. Once they realize how outmatched they are, they'll retreat or they'll be obliterated. He gestures grandly toward the Coalition fleet, the advanced ships gleaming in the display. Commander Morak, confidently, "This is a display of real power. These humans are hardly worthy of our attention. This battle will be over before it even begins." Corvo watches him for a moment, his expression unreadable. Slowly, he turns his attention back to the screen, studying the human fleet as it moves closer. There's a strange calmness to the human ships, a lack of hesitation that stands in stark contrast to the coalition commander's smug confidence. Admiral KSAR, thoughtful. There's something unsettling about them. They move with a kind of purpose. They're not wavering, not adjusting course. It's as if they're preparing. Commander TYR, laughing, preparing? For what? A glorious defeat? Look at their ships, Admiral. They're no match for us. They're probably counting on one desperate maneuver to make an impact, then retreat. It's a tactic born of inexperience. Corvo narrows his eyes slightly, his gaze still fixed on the human fleet's unbroken advance. General Corvo, quietly, almost to himself, perhaps. But I don't think they're here for a show. This isn't some desperate gesture. I sense they're moving with intention, not desperation. Morak, clearly growing frustrated with Corvo's cautious tone, waves a dismissive hand. Commander Morak, scoffing, "Intention or not, they're out of their depth. Let them come. They'll be met with a swift end, and we can go back to matters that actually require our attention." As the human fleet draws closer, the coalition commanders watch with a mixture of curiosity and amusement, their earlier skepticism unwavering. However, a faint tension begins to settle over the room as the human ships continue their calm, relentless approach. Commander TYR, mockingly, "Perhaps they're planning to overwhelm us with sheer numbers. Although even that tactic will only delay the inevitable." Admiral KSAR, with a slight frown. Yet, they advance with no sign of retreat. It's peculiar. The room grows silent as the display shifts again, highlighting the human fleet's formation, a straightforward, almost crude alignment, but unnervingly steady. Corvo watches intently, his expression thoughtful. General Corvo, in a low voice, "Sometimes it's not the sophistication of the vessel, but the will of those guiding it that makes the difference." Morak scoffs again, clearly unimpressed. Commander Morak, with a smirk, "Sentimental words, General. But this is war, not a story of courage. Will alone doesn't win battles. Superior firepower, strategy, and technology, that's what wins." Corvo's gaze remains fixed on the screen as the human fleet advances, without hesitation. General Corvo, softly, "We shall see." The tension in the room subtly increases as the human ships draw even closer, moving with a precision that, though lacking refinement, hints at something more profound. The alien commanders watch, still largely dismissive, but with a creeping sense of unease that none of them want to acknowledge aloud. Corvo's gaze never wavers, his thoughts a mystery as he studies this unpredictable enemy. The screen zooms in on one of the human ships, a large, angular vessel covered in signs of past battles. It's rough, scarred, and outclassed by the coalition standards, yet there's something unsettling about its silent advance. The coalition commanders fall quiet, their earlier smugness beginning to fade. The scene opens with the coalition commanders watching the human fleet on the central display. Their initial skepticism fades as they witness humanity's fleet implementing complex, unexpected tactics. Human ships start executing precise strikes on key coalition assets, disrupting formations and deploying sophisticated electronic warfare. The alien commanders, who moments before wore expressions of amusement, now exchange uneasy glances as the true threat level of humanity's forces becomes disturbingly clear. The display in the command chamber shows the human fleet moving into range. Alien commanders, who were once dismissive, now observe with intense focus. Suddenly, a bright flash indicates the first strike, a calculated, pinpointed blast that disables a key coalition communications relay. The strike is surgical, carried out with exact precision, causing the room to fall into stunned silence. Commander Morak, voice tinged with shock. What was that? They struck the relay. Directly. The commanders exchange shocked glances. Admiral KSAR steps forward, her expression unreadable, but with a hint of rising apprehension. Admiral KSAR quietly. That wasn't just a random hit. They targeted it on purpose. They're trying to sever our lines. Commander TYR, voice laced with disbelief. Impossible. They shouldn't have the capability to calculate a strike like that. Their technology, it's outdated. Before the commanders can react, another display lights up with warning signals. Human ships are executing coordinated attacks on specific coalition vessels, focusing on engines and communication systems with alarming accuracy. Each strike is methodical, as if pre-planned to maximize disruption. General Corvo, his tone calm but with a hard edge. It appears their outdated ships have more than a few surprises. This isn't brute force. They know exactly what they're doing. Morak looks visibly rattled, his earlier confidence faltering as he stares at the screen. Commander Morak, frustrated, but how? They're supposed to be outmatched. How are they even keeping up with us? Admiral KSAR, voice tense, her eyes narrowed at the screen. This isn't a traditional assault. Look at how they move. They're adapting, watching us. Every time we adjust our formation, they shift, staying one step ahead. The display shows human ships executing a complex maneuver, shifting into an unpredictable formation that seems to anticipate the coalition's every move. The coalition fleet scrambles to respond, but it's clear they're struggling to keep pace with the humans' nimble tactics. Commander TYR, voice tinged with fear. They're reading us. It's like they know our tactics before we even execute them. General Corvo grimly, adaptation. That's what makes them dangerous. They've had to survive against impossible odds for as long as we've known them. And now, that survival instinct has become their greatest weapon. Morak clenches his fists, his frustration boiling over as he watches the coalition ships get outmaneuvered again and again. Commander Morak, angry and bewildered enough. Activate the countermeasures. Overload their sensors. Let's show them what real technology looks like. Coalition ships begin deploying electronic countermeasures, attempting to disrupt human navigation and communication systems. But almost immediately, the human fleet responds. They deploy their own countermeasures, jamming the coalition systems and countering the interference with unexpected ease. Admiral KSAR, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with dread. They're countering our interference? But how could they possibly have equipment to match ours? The display shows the coalition's defensive systems failing to block the human electronic warfare tactics. Human ships continue advancing with cold precision, launching yet another strike that disables a key coalition vessel's propulsion, leaving it drifting helplessly. Commander TYR, in a panicked tone, they're not just matching us, they're outmaneuvering us. It's as if they anticipated our every move before the battle even started. Corvo's gaze hardens, his earlier suspicions now confirmed. He watches as the human fleet demonstrates a chilling efficiency, using each opening created by the coalition's weaknesses. General Corvo, voice low and steady. They're studying us, learning with every move we make. Every mistake we commit becomes their advantage. Morak slams a fist against the table, his face contorted in frustration and disbelief. Commander Morak, furious. How is this possible? We have centuries of combat experience, advanced systems, the finest ships in the galaxy. And these humans are matching us move for move? Admiral KSAR nervously. They may lack our technology, but it seems they don't need it. They're turning our own strengths against us. Every tactic, every trick we use, they respond like they've known it all along. The human fleet executes another precise strike, hitting a fuel storage unit within a coalition vessel. The explosion ripples through the display, sending shockwaves across the room. A heavy silence settles as the coalition commanders realize the true scale of humanity's threat. Commander TYR, In a faint voice, we were wrong. We thought they would be easy prey, but they're turning into a nightmare. General Corvo, quietly, almost to himself. They fight like a species with nothing to lose. They're unpredictable, and that makes them deadly. Corvo turns to the commanders, his expression firm. General Corvo, in a commanding tone, we must treat this as a real threat. Underestimating them will cost us dearly. Their tactics are far beyond what we've seen from any other species. They're using everything they have to survive. The room falls into a tense silence. Morak, still visibly shaken, forces himself to speak, though his voice is strained. Commander Morak, grudgingly, if they've come this far, perhaps we need to adjust our tactics. Corvo nods, a grim determination in his eyes. General Corvo firmly, yes, we must adapt. And fast. They're relentless, but they're not unstoppable. The display zooms out, showing the coalition fleet reforming in response to the human threat. Despite their earlier arrogance, a sense of respect and fear now underpins every movement and command issued by the alien leaders. The human fleet, steady and relentless, continues its approach, its quiet resilience more unsettling than any battle cry. Admiral KSAR, whispering, they're forcing us to see them as equals. We can't afford to dismiss them any longer. Corvo's gaze remains fixed on the display, his face hard and unreadable as he prepares for the coming confrontation. General Corvo coldly, they came to survive, and now we must fight to do the same. The commanders fall silent, their expressions somber as they realize the full gravity of the situation. Humanity, once dismissed as a minor threat, has shown itself to be a force that cannot be ignored. The coalition fleet braces for the next phase, now aware that this will be no ordinary battle. The scene opens with the alien commanders now visibly unsettled, their earlier confidence drained. They stand around the central display, eyes fixed on the human fleet as it continues its unyielding assault. Precise, relentless, and with a mastery over tactics that the coalition hadn't expected, humanity's forces begin to wear down the alien defenses. The air in the command chamber is thick with tension as the alien leaders struggle to comprehend what they're witnessing. The holographic display flickers, showing the human fleet advancing even closer, their calculated strikes crippling key coalition vessels one by one. The silence in the room is palpable, each alien commander watching with a mixture of awe and fear as their once invincible fleet falters. General Corvo stands at the front, his usually confident demeanor replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. General Corvo, muttering to himself, voice low and shaken. What kind of warriors are these humans? Admiral KSAR, whose initial skepticism has now turned to respect, steps forward, her eyes wide as she studies the human fleet's movements. Admiral KSAR whispering, they're not just fighting, they're dismantling us. Every strike, every maneuver, they're showing a level of skill that defies explanation. Commander TYR, once boastful and dismissive, now stands frozen, his face a mask of shock. He stares at the display, unable to hide his disbelief. Commander TYR, in a strained voice, they're using tactics we've never seen before. They're adapting faster than any species we've ever encountered. It's like they're reading our minds. Corvo turns to him, his expression grim but laced with a hint of reluctant admiration. General Corvo, they move as if this was all part of their plan. Every time we adjust, they're already one step ahead. Pauses, his voice filled with a grudging respect. I've never seen anything like it. Morak, who had mocked humanity's efforts earlier, now stands speechless, his confidence shattered. He clenches his jaw, struggling to process what's unfolding before him. Commander Morak, in a tone of disbelief, how is this possible? They're supposed to be outmatched in every way. And yet, we're the ones falling back. The human fleet performs another coordinated strike, targeting a cluster of coalition ships and breaking their formation entirely. Coalition commanders watch in silent awe, each aware that their defensive lines are crumbling under humanity's relentless assault. Admiral KSAR, with a mixture of awe and dread. They're relentless. They're not fighting like soldiers, they're fighting like survivors. Like beings who've been through worse than we can imagine. Corvo closes his eyes for a moment, as if weighing the weight of her words. When he opens them, his gaze is steady, filled with a new understanding. General Corvo survivors, that's precisely what they are. They've lived in the harshest corners of space, facing enemies we've never known. And now they've brought that fight here. The other commanders fall silent, each realizing that they're facing not just an enemy, but a force that seems beyond their understanding. The room is filled with a sense of growing dread as humanity's forces continue their advance, unflinching, unrelenting. Commander TYR, in a hushed tone, almost afraid, "We underestimated them. We assumed they would break, but they're breaking us." Corvo watches the screen, his eyes narrowed with a mix of fear and awe. There's a hint of admiration in his voice, even as he speaks of the enemy. General Corvo, quietly, almost to himself. These humans, they fight as if their very existence depends on every move they make. Pauses. In awe, this isn't desperation. This is mastery. Admiral KSAR places a hand on the table, her fingers tense as she leans forward, her gaze locked on the human fleet. The silence stretches, and the realization dawns among the commanders. They are no longer the hunters in this fight. Admiral KSAR, softly, "They're here to teach us a lesson. And if we don't change, they'll be the ones left standing." The alien commanders exchange fearful glances. For the first time, they're facing an opponent they do not fully understand, an enemy who doesn't seek glory, but survival. Commander Morak, reluctant, his voice filled with awe, "They're unstoppable. They're doing what no other species has ever dared." Corvo nods slowly, acknowledging the truth of Morak's words. General Corvo, perhaps that's why they're so dangerous. They don't fight for conquest or recognition. They fight for something deeper, something we can't even begin to understand. He takes a deep breath, his voice quiet but resolved. "General Corvo, we came here expecting an easy victory, and now we're fighting for our own survival." The room falls into silence once more, the alien commanders coming to terms with the gravity of the situation. They had dismissed humanity as a weak and isolated species, but now they realize they are facing a force that won't stop, that won't retreat, and that won't falter. The display zooms out, showing the human fleet continuing its relentless approach, undeterred by the coalition's failing defenses. The alien commanders watch in fearful respect, each of them grasping that they are in the presence of warriors unlike any they've faced before. The scene shifts to the interior of a captured coalition vessel, now serving as a makeshift command post for the human forces. Alien commanders, including General Corvo, Admiral KSAR, and Commander Morak, are seated across from a human officer, Captain Elias. He is calm, collected, and completely unfazed by the intense situation around him. The alien leaders watch him with a mixture of shock and fascination as he begins to speak. His demeanor is unsettling in its stillness, contrasting with the tension in the room. Captain Elias, a man in his early 40s with sharp features and a steady gaze, sits at the head of the table, flanked by two human soldiers. His posture is relaxed, hands folded in front of him. Across the table, General Corvo and the other alien commanders observe him, their expressions a mix of fear and intrigue. Elias's calm, almost detached demeanor contrasts starkly with the alien's nervous energy. Captain Elias calmly, with an even tone, "I understand this confuses you. The way we fight, but to us, this isn't unusual. It's standard." Corvo leans forward, his violet eyes narrowed, as if trying to discern any hint of emotion in Elias's face. General Corvo, with a mixture of frustration and curiosity, "Standard? You call this standard? You've systematically dismantled our defenses. Your tactics are beyond anything we expected from your species. Elias offers a slight smile, a cold, unsettling expression that only deepens the unease of the alien commanders. Captain Elias, we've learned, General, that to survive in hostile space, you can't afford hesitation. We may lack your technology, your resources, but we make up for it in adaptation. Admiral KSAR watches Elias intently, as if trying to read his thoughts. Her voice is low, almost a whisper. Admiral KSAR, softly, almost in awe. Adaptation. You adapt at a pace we've never seen. It's as if you're anticipating our every move. Elias nods, his gaze unwavering. Captain Elias, matter-of-factly. Anticipation is key. We study, we learn, and we adapt. Every encounter is a lesson, every loss a step forward. This isn't something new for us. It's how we've survived. And survival is the only priority. Commander Morak shifts uncomfortably in his seat, visibly unnerved by Elias's calm tone. His voice is filled with disbelief. Commander Morak, almost in anger, survival? You make it sound as if that's all you care about. No honor, no alliances, just survival? Elias turns to Morak, his gaze cool and steady. Captain Elias, yes, Commander. That's precisely what we care about. We fight to survive, nothing more. For us, war isn't about pride or glory. Those things are luxuries we can't afford. Corvo looks at Elias with a mixture of respect and bewilderment. General Corvo, slowly, with growing understanding. So your tactics, your strategies, they're all based on survival? You're saying that's why you've managed to push us to the brink? Elias's expression remains neutral. Captain Elias, correct. We don't see this as a game or a demonstration of strength. We see it as a necessity. If we lose, we die. That simplicity keeps us focused. There's no room for hesitation, no margin for error. Admiral KSAR is visibly shaken by the words, as if understanding humanity's mindset for the first time. Admiral KSAR, in a soft, almost fearful tone, you don't have any fear of loss? No hesitation? Elias meets her gaze with an unblinking stare. Captain Elias, it's not that we don't feel fear. We simply don't allow it to guide us. Fear is a luxury, Admiral. It's something we don't entertain on the battlefield. There's a long pause as the alien commanders process his words. Their faces reflect a dawning realization of the true nature of humanity's approach to war. Commander Morak, almost whispering to himself, no fear, no hesitation. Just focus. Elias inclines his head slightly, acknowledging Morak's words. Captain Elias, exactly. In our history, we've faced countless threats, diseases, famine, extinction-level events. We've learned that survival is a matter of adaptability and resilience. Nothing else. Corvo leans back, his face a mask of reluctant admiration. General Corvo, thoughtfully. That's what makes you so dangerous. You're not bound by the same rules as the rest of us. You don't fight for honor or glory. You fight purely for survival. Elias nods, his face unreadable. Captain Elias, and that, General, is why we're here. We do what we must to endure, even if it means going beyond what others consider acceptable. Admiral KSAR, unable to contain her curiosity, speaks up, her voice tinged with both fear and respect. Admiral KSAR cautiously, but how do you stay so calm? Even in the midst of battle, your people move as if they're not even aware of danger. Elias's gaze is steady, almost unsettling. Captain Elias, we've learned to see war for what it is, a tool to secure our existence. Emotional reactions only cloud judgment. Our focus is absolute because it has to be. Morak, visibly affected, stares at Elias with a mix of anger and respect. Commander Morak, grudgingly, you don't fight like any species we've encountered. You don't seem to care about anything except surviving. Elias nods slowly, acknowledging the truth of Morak's statement. Captain Elias, survival is our priority. Everything else, honor, alliances, even comfort, is secondary. When you've been on the edge for as long as we have, you learn to focus only on what matters. There's a moment of silence as the alien commanders absorb his words, each grappling with the profound simplicity of humanity's mindset. They look at one another, a silent understanding passing between them. General Corvo, speaking quietly, almost to himself, "We've been fighting to maintain order, to uphold a way of life. But you fight because your lives depend on it." Elias watches him with an unreadable expression, his voice calm and steady. "Captain Elias, exactly, General. We don't fight for ideals or power. We fight to secure our future, whatever it takes. And that's why we won't stop." Corvo's gaze hardens, but there's a new respect in his eyes as he studies Elias. General Corvo grimly, "Then perhaps we are the ones who need to adapt." Elias doesn't respond, merely observing the alien commanders as they exchange uneasy glances, each realizing the true nature of their opponent. Admiral KSAR, her voice barely above a whisper, speaks, almost to herself. Admiral KSAR, with quiet awe, they've come this far because they've stripped away everything unnecessary. All they know is survival. Corvo's voice is filled with a reluctant respect as he turns back to Elias. General Corvo firmly, "You've given us much to consider, Captain. I can see now why your people have lasted as long as they have." Elias nods, his gaze unchanging. "Captain Elias, we don't ask for respect, General. Only the space to exist. But if survival requires it, we'll earn that space." The alien commanders look at one another, each grasping the sobering reality that humanity is unlike any enemy they have ever faced. Their respect for humanity has turned into something deeper, an understanding of what drives them and the unyielding force behind their fight. The room falls silent, the weight of Elias's words settling heavily on each alien present. Humanity, once thought to be a minor nuisance, is now seen as an indomitable force. And for the first time, the coalition realizes that they are facing an opponent who will not yield, no matter the cost. The scene opens in the coalition command chamber, now filled with tension and desperation. The alien commanders, previously confident in their superiority, are watching the screens as humanity's fleet executes a series of flawless maneuvers. Each movement is precise and calculated, leading to the systematic dismantling of the coalition's defensive formations. The realization dawns on the alien leaders that their defeat is inevitable, and a heavy silence fills the room as they confront the weight of their impending surrender. The atmosphere in the chamber is thick with dread as the holographic display shows the human fleet advancing with chilling precision. Coalition ships that were once symbols of power are now reduced to desperate attempts at defense. General Corvo stands at the forefront, his eyes narrowed, watching in disbelief as the human forces execute a perfectly coordinated strike, hitting multiple key targets simultaneously. General Corvo, voice low, filled with dread, "It's over. They're dismantling us piece by piece." Admiral KSAR, her face pale and eyes wide, looks to Corvo, fear etched across her features. Admiral KSAR, breathless, "This isn't just a defeat. It's a complete collapse. We never imagined they could operate like this." The display shows human ships breaking through the last line of coalition defenses, cutting through the once impenetrable formations, as if they were made of paper. Each maneuver is executed with flawless timing, leaving the alien commanders reeling. Commander Morak, in disbelief, his voice trembling, "How did we allow this to happen? We should have seen it coming. They're relentless." Corvo, steeling himself, remains fixated on the screen, his mind racing as he struggles to grasp the scale of the impending defeat. General Corvo, gritting his teeth, "We underestimated them at every turn. We thought they were primitive, and yet they've shown us what true determination looks like." Suddenly, the display flashes with alerts as another coalition ship goes dark, its systems crippled by a direct hit from a human vessel. The room is filled with the sound of alarms, each warning striking like a nail in the coffin of the coalition's morale. Admiral KSAR, voice shaking. They're not just attacking, they're overwhelming us. They know our weaknesses and are exploiting them without mercy. The commanders watch in stunned silence as the human fleet continues its advance. Each strike is precise, each movement calculated to break apart the coalition's defense. The alien leaders can do nothing but observe their impending demise unfold before their eyes. Commander TYR, voice filled with despair. This is the nightmare. We're losing control. We need to regroup to strategize. Before TYR can finish, the screen shifts to show a human ship broadcasting a message across the channel. Captain Elias's voice comes through clearly, calm, and confident. Captain Elias VO. Through the comms, steady and unwavering. This is Captain Elias of the United Earth Fleet. To the coalition forces, you have fought bravely, but the time for resistance is over. We offer you a choice: surrender, and we will ensure your safety, or continue this fight and face complete annihilation. The room goes silent, the weight of Elias's words hanging heavily in the air. Each alien commander absorbs the implications of the message, the reality of their situation sinking in. General Corvo, voice strained, surrender. It's unthinkable. We cannot allow it. But his words are met with silence as the other commanders look around, their expressions revealing their inner turmoil. There's no denying the odds any longer. Elias's calm demeanor contrasts sharply with the panic swirling within the coalition ranks. Admiral KSAR, softly, almost defeated. What other choice do we have? They've already shown us the depths of their power. If we refuse, we face total destruction. Morak, visibly shaken, shakes his head, struggling with the reality of surrender. Commander Morak, voice rising. But to surrender is to admit defeat. Our people will never forgive us. Corvo interrupts, his voice firm, commanding attention. General Corvo, sternly. This isn't just about pride anymore, Morak. It's about survival. If we continue to fight, we will be wiped out. We have a responsibility to our people to ensure their future, even if it means laying down our arms. The room falls silent as the commanders wrestle with the decision before them. The screen shows human ships steadily closing in, and the tension is palpable. Each alien leader reflects on their own thoughts, weighing the cost of continuing the fight against the cost of surrender. Admiral KSAR, her voice trembling. If we surrender, what will happen to us? Will they show us mercy? Corvo looks at KSAR, his face hardened but filled with a reluctant understanding. General Corvo, sincerely, we can only hope. But we must act now. If we hesitate any longer, it will be too late. Finally, with a heavy heart, Morak nods slowly, his resolve breaking under the weight of the situation. Commander Morak, defeated. Then let's end this. We have to surrender. The other commanders exchange glances, their eyes filled with resignation. They realize that the fight has slipped from their grasp, and in that moment, they understand the gravity of their decision. General Corvo, taking a deep breath. Prepare the transmission. We'll signal our surrender. The display shifts again, showing the human fleet waiting, poised for the next command. Elias's voice comes through once more, now more resonant, almost triumphant. Captain Elias VO, with quiet authority, your choice is clear. We are prepared to welcome you as allies, should you choose to end this conflict now. Corvo steps forward, voice steady as he speaks into the comms, addressing Elias directly. General Corvo, resolute, yet filled with emotion. This is General Corvo of the Coalition Forces. We acknowledge our defeat and request terms for surrender. The tension in the room shifts as the realization settles over the alien commanders. They are surrendering, something that had once seemed impossible. The screens display the human fleet's movements slowing, almost as if they are allowing the coalition to process this moment. The alien commanders look at one another, a mix of relief and despair filling the air as they accept the reality of their situation. Admiral KSAR, softly we've lost. We can only hope they will show us mercy in our surrender. Corvo stands tall. Despite the crushing weight of defeat, a newfound respect for humanity evident in his expression. General Corvo quietly reflecting. In the end, we faced warriors like we've never known. Perhaps this is a chance for a new beginning, even amidst our loss. As the final confirmation of surrender is sent, the alien commanders come to terms with their defeat. The realization settles in that they will need to navigate a new relationship with humanity, one marked by humility and understanding. The scene opens in the quiet aftermath of the surrender. The Coalition command chamber is now eerily still, the holographic displays showing only remnants of the battle. General Corvo stands alone, staring at the empty space where the human fleet once advanced with relentless precision. His mind races with thoughts about the implications of what has just occurred. This is a moment of deep introspection as he contemplates humanity's approach to warfare and what it means for the future of the galaxy. The room is dimly lit, remnants of battle still visible on the screens, which now flicker with static. General Corvo stands at the table, hands resting heavily on the cold surface, his mind churning with thoughts. The silence around him feels oppressive, the weight of defeat heavy in the air. General Corvo, to himself, voice echoing softly, "What have we become? We thought ourselves invincible, and yet we were brought low by an enemy we dismissed as primitive." He closes his eyes, replaying the events of the battle in his mind. Each moment of underestimation, each missed opportunity to recognize humanity's potential. A deep sense of regret washes over him. General Corvo reflectively, they approached war not as a game, but as a matter of survival. A single-minded focus that stripped away the complexities of pride and honor. They fought for existence. The screen shifts to display the human fleet, still visible in the distance, a testament to their relentless advance. Corvo opens his eyes, taking in the stark contrast of humanity's vessels, rugged, scarred, but undeniably powerful. General Corvo, continuing, voice heavy with realization. In our arrogance, we failed to see the strength in their simplicity. They fought without the distractions of glory, without hesitation. Every decision made was driven by the need to survive. He steps closer to the holographic display, examining the details of the human ships. They had once seemed weak and ill-prepared, but now they appear as symbols of resilience and determination. General Corvo, with a hint of admiration, what kind of warriors are these humans? They've changed the very nature of warfare. No longer is it merely about strength in numbers or superior technology. It's about will, about adaptability. As he speaks, Corvo's tone shifts from regret to a profound sense of awe. The implications of humanity's approach resonate deeply within him. General Corvo musing, we thought ourselves the pinnacle of combatants, yet we are now faced with a species that fights not for conquest, but for survival. This is a fundamental shift. They've redefined what it means to be a warrior. He turns, looking out the viewport into the vastness of space, the stars shimmering like distant memories. The galaxy feels smaller, more fragile now that he understands the true nature of humanity's power. General Corvo, softly, reflecting on the future. If humanity can push through adversity with such resolve, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for the galaxy? The silence is heavy as he contemplates the consequences of their newfound understanding. He knows the Coalition can no longer operate under the same assumptions they once held. Humanity's approach has introduced a new element into the equation. General Corvo, his voice steady, filled with foreboding, we must adapt, or we will be left behind. The rules of engagement have changed. No longer can we expect victory to be a guarantee. We must now consider the resolve of those we face. He ponders the vast potential for conflict in the galaxy, recognizing that other species may also learn from humanity's example. The thought sends a shiver down his spine. General Corvo, with a mixture of fear and awe. If we are to remain relevant, we cannot afford to underestimate anyone again. We've opened a door to a new era of warfare, one where adaptability and sheer will might outweigh the most advanced technology. Corvo's mind races with the implications, recognizing the potential for chaos and conflict, but also a chance for understanding and cooperation. Humanity's relentless spirit might not only reshape warfare, but also relationships between species. General Corvo determined, perhaps this is an opportunity for growth. If we can learn from one another, perhaps we can find a way to coexist rather than being trapped in a cycle of violence. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The realization that they must change their ways weighs heavily on him. A new path is necessary, one that involves humility and an openness to the unexpected. General Corvo, firmly, almost to himself, we must forge a new path, one built on respect rather than domination. Humanity's approach may offer lessons we cannot afford to ignore. He steps back from the display, taking one last look at the stars, and a sense of purpose washes over him. General Corvo, resolutely, the galaxy is vast and filled with potential. We must embrace this change, confront our own flaws, and recognize the strength of those we once viewed as weak. As he turns away from the viewport, there's a newfound resolve in his stride. The defeat has become a catalyst for reflection and growth, prompting a deeper understanding of what it means to be a part of this galaxy. The scene fades out as Corvo walks towards the command table, the weight of his thoughts still heavy, but his mind filled with the possibilities that lie ahead in a galaxy forever altered by the encounter with humanity.